Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast, episode 193. We have a great episode with Erin Quinn, staff attorney at ILRC, and I'm sure everyone knows who ILRC is, so we're good good company here. But we're going to talk about her experience, how she got to where she is, and just all the activities ILRC is doing. I should say the whole name because I'm so used to saying ILRC. It's Legal Resource Center. I sometimes want to say Immigrant Rights Center for some reason. It's just when I think about it, but we're definitely going to get into all that. But before we want to start, I want to remind everybody that the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine is out. The first issue came out 2 or 3 months ago. Next one should be out in like 36 hours. We're fine tuning it, all this kind of stuff. It was a great success. We got a lot of good feedback. So I want to thank everyone who watched it and read the magazine. Definitely check it out. So there'll be announcements coming, but you go to www.immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine to see the newest issue there and the previous issue. Also, I want to thank our main sponsors, always support the podcast and the magazine, which is DocuWise. DocuWise is a all-in-one service for practice management, particularly the forms that we use, but a lot more. You can get a extra 10% off discount from their annual plan by going to DocuWise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast using the code Immigration Lawyers Podcast. So that's something to have. It's what I use myself. It's something that I recommend as well. So with that, let's jump into it. Erin, how are you doing today? Let me get you on the screen.
Nice.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Doing pretty good.
Wonderful. So why don't you let us know about where you're at and how you got involved in immigration law?
Sure. Well, I'm a senior staff attorney at the Immigrant Legal Resource Center now, which is a really fun place to work where I get to touch policy, do capacity building, help and advise on cases, and also do community work. So I'm pretty excited at the role I get to do now. And that comes on a career of about a decade of removal defense experience before coming back to the ILRC.
You had private practice for many years. I mean, you started in that sector in the pro bono / a community service sector. There's a formal name for that. It escapes me at the moment. But how was it going back, and how often is it people who work at organizations like yours that were in the private sector and switch back after so many years?
Yeah, so I think you're talking about the forbidden public interest sector.
Public interest, yeah.
I think we're also dating ourselves. It was in law school, that was a real big deal, that I was sure I wanted to do the public interest work and not do firm jobs. At the time, that was really disfavored. And I remember going to job interviews that I was compelled to go to. Our school asked us to do on-campus interviewing, and the interviewers would say things like, "Wow, I really don't see law firm anywhere on here." So I think I was, my desire to be in immigration and doing rights-based work showed pretty early on. But I made the decision to work in private practice in immigration after a stint of fellowships where I just realized how complicated immigration law is. And if I wanted to do good public policy work and wanted to be able to advise properly, even at the community level, I felt like I needed real experience. Mm-hmm. And started off at the law office of Robert Job out here in San Francisco, really got some removal defense practice under my belt. And also just, I guess you could call it an addiction to working with clients. And instead of doing 1 or 2 years in that role, ended up doing about 9 years of direct services before stepping back and thinking more about how I could impact the bigger picture by advising other lawyers, training, and getting to touch the policy side, which is what I'm doing now.
It's amazing how this practice is like you fall in love with the people we work with and helping them, and it's just so satisfying. Sometimes they can't pay, you're like, whatever, I'll do it, and just like it's a unique practice. I've never practiced anything else, so I can't say, but I imagine like family law, people getting divorced is not as much of a joy to help these people as it is as immigration. It's a very unique practice. So now you're with ILRC, and you guys do so many different levels of things over there. It's got to be kind of hard to compartmentalize it, because you have policy stuff you're doing. There's always overlap. It's immigration, but you're also doing capacity building that might be a term that people aren't familiar with. Can you explain what capacity building means?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the way I like to break it down is ILRC really works in 3 areas. You could think of it as policy advocacy, civic engagement, working directly within immigrant communities, and what we call this legal capacity building work. And for us, that means, because we are a legal support center, that means working with practitioners and advocates in the field to build up their expertise so that they can be the best at defending and advocating for immigrants in their communities. For me, that's a large part of my job. So folks might, know me more for the fact that I'm somebody you could call for some extra consultation on a case, or for doing a webinar training on an area of law. And the other way that people might be touching our capacity building work is through our manuals. So we do put out a lot of manuals on how to do various aspects of immigration law. And for us, all of that is capacity building. It's ways that we're helping the whole field of folks, be it lawyers, advocates, service providers, help better serve immigrants.
So the manuals are there. I mean, you have the DACA manual, which is updated. It's surprising we still need the DACA manual. There hasn't been a solution yet. Even Trump, as bad as he was.
Yeah, we brought that one back. We're excited.
We thought there was a solution where there's a pathway to citizenship at this point after, so many years of the DACA being a program. But it's there, and people got to take advantage of it. So it's kind of going back to the people who didn't know you could do it or didn't get it the first time around. They really need to go. I got an email about DAPA, DAPA today, asking if we could do it. I'm like, well, fortunately, DAPA never came to place, but the courts didn't allow it. But that'd be something Biden could do, maybe push that one forward and get that. And that would help a lot of people. And maybe the advanced parole portion could help a lot of immediate citizen parents. It's popped my head. That's something to push. Do you know of anything happening with DAPA, or is that right now is dead?
I mean, I think right now we're looking and pushing and hoping for some bigger immigration reform. We're sitting on a new administration, and there's a lot of bills in the mix right now. So hopefully we'll have something that has a stronger pathway to citizenship, and that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah. So you got, in addition to the manuals, which a lot of them are free. There's paid ones too in books that they have, but everyone's always done research, and ILRC comes up. And I remember I learned a lot from your 245I manual that you have online. It's a tricky subject, but you always have like citations and stuff too. So it's like a Bible. It's a courage band on its own, the kind of material you have. But you also do seminars and webinars. How often is that, or you just do live? So if someone wants to watch it, do you only watch a live version, or do you sell recordings or provide recordings of that as well?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much everything we have available is easy to access from our website. So you mentioned free resources. We try to keep a lot of free materials up, particularly when something new hits. We try to get advisories up as fast as possible and maintain up-to-date legal information there. And all of that's on our website free of charge, including a California crimes reference chart for practitioners. And as you mentioned, just various practice advisories. So all of that's there. There's also the ability to log in and check out more specialized, thorough, in-depth processing of material through webinars. And our regular webinar calendar is accessible also online with their ongoing, sometimes multiple ones in a week, depending on what's going on. So we're pretty busy now that we have a new administration. There's a lot that's going to need updated, and a lot we've been able to update already. So it's exciting to see change happening that's actually positive for a change.
Yeah, I mean, during Trump's time, you must have been not sleeping at all, like with the daily barrage of changes and court cases and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my goodness. Just like everyone else, right? We're waking up and seeing what's pinged on our phones and our devices and hoping the sky hasn't fallen. It's nice to wake up in the morning and get a cup of coffee before checking the news. It's like that little extra window of comfort we have now. So that's nice.
I remember when the public charge situation happened with Trump, I was constantly reading and rereading what you put because I'm trying to wrap my head around every nuanced aspect that would come up. And it's like, this person got this benefit, does this count? Not constantly on ILRC's page. But another service we offer, which I was surprised that we had talked earlier, is kind of for California practitioners. individual consultations to just confirm stuff and information. That was a neat program that ILRC offers.
Yeah, we call it Attorney of the Day, affectionately known as AOD, and it's a way for new practitioners, nonprofits, advocates to have a sounding board to check in on their casework or just elevate their ability to take more complex cases. It's basically an opportunity to write in a very specific question to our attorney staff, and then on a daily basis, we're going through and providing technical expertise through emails, information back to your specific requests. So that's the AOD program, and it is available to nonprofits and private practitioners. For right now, we're at capacity for private practitioners out of state. We're probably not taking too many new contracts in that space right now, but we are still supporting new nonprofits and new private practitioners in California.
That's a great resource, because especially when it comes to criminalization in California, that's a minefield, and it's so complicated. If someone tells me they've had an arrest, I say, you know what, go to another practitioner, because that's gonna wrap my head around what's going on. There is a lot of work. Thank you for your expertise. So, what direction is ILRC going on the policy end right now? What kind of stuff do you have in the mix? Some of you can't talk about. It's one of those things you can't talk about happening, but generally.
Yeah, my work is mostly in the training and capacity building side, and I touch just to speak for my bucket of work, I touch the policy side mostly when it comes to looking at agency guidance and specific statutory provisions deep in immigration law. So we're doing a lot of work right now directly with immigration agencies, working on what changes we'd like to see happen. I know a lot of folks maybe that were tuning in were answering USCIS's call for what types of things need attention to make their processes and policies move smoother. So we're involved in all of that. And then we also have a Washington, D.C. team that works in, all of the legislative mix and thinking about making sure the most vulnerable populations are protected when we're considering new laws and new provisions.
So do you get a lot of stuff that's happening at the border right now? Do you get a lot of calls about that, or do you see just stuff coming in, or would that be a separate team that handles stuff at the border?
Yeah, so we're a pretty big team now at ILRC. We're around 50 folks, and we have attorney staff in Texas, Washington, D.C., and California, with folks on the ground in the Central Valley, as well as our main office in San Francisco. And a new twist is we also have community organizers working as employees directly with ILRC to make sure that we're working on issues that are important within the communities and raising up their voices when we're considering policies or immigration law issues that are of concern. This is a long-winded to say there's lots of different people involved depending on what issue is in play. We have a youth team that handles youth policy and law, and that often overlaps with some of those issues at the border. Yeah. And we also have, a specific Texas team that's working hard on our favorite red blue state. There's so much great advocacy and work going on the ground there around enforcement issues and really changing the landscape of Texas. So that's to say that, depending on the issue or what the policy press might be, it might be different people involved.
That's big. 50 people. Was a lot of this growth in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, we did grow quite a bit under the Trump administration. There was a lot of need.
So, IRC started in the 70s. It's been around for a while, right?
Right. So around 1979. So our founder, Bill Ong Ing, is now still on our board. And it's had various incarnations over the years, starting as, what was almost a clinic model back in the day, working with students to do direct representation, work on immigration issues, to what we are today with this, multifaceted approach.
Interesting. If someone wanted to reach out, especially for the attorney for the day kind of stuff, and especially for California, a lot of private practitioners listen, who would they contact for that?
Yeah, there's the easiest probably for purposes of being on just a podcast is to just go straight to our website and look at the either contact us button or the technical support tab tells you how to specifically look for contract support. And those are probably the easiest ways to start that communication. That service is actually provided free of charge to many nonprofits. So one of our main roles as a support center is to support nonprofits doing legal services and immigration within California, those working in naturalization nationally, as well as like IOLTA funded organizations here in California. All of those receive our attorney of the day as part of their role. So those that are tuning in that didn't know that, go ahead and reach out.
It's such a good program. I have to mention it twice. And one thing I'd recommend people doing is a lot of private practitioners get your mailings maybe once or twice a year. That's what programs you have. But the best thing to probably do is to go to ilrc.org/subscribe and just get the email subscriptions, because sometimes there'll be something you don't even know you need to know. So I know when I get the pamphlet that you guys have, I always read it. I'm like, oh, there's a thing on that. I should get that, because like on public charge or on citizenship or just these development stuff. Right. And both, if you're new to this practice, we got to learn a lot of stuff for immigration, or if you've been doing it for a while, because things change so much. Everyone's new at immigration all the time. There's just so much new material constantly. It's hard to be too seasoned in this because it just changes so often.
Yeah, and the one nice thing about subscribing is we do blast out new advisories when they hit the website. And so if there's late breaking news, it's one way to make sure you get it. I mean, I think a lot of us are tapped into a lot of listservs right now. And I think that's really important, though, if you're practicing in an area of law like this that changes so frequently. It's nice to know what resources are instantly available or readily available.
Yeah, I'm surprised. There's a lot of Facebook groups for immigration, and every day I'll read something. I'm like, that's a thing? I didn't realize. I've been doing this for like 11, 12 years. I'm like, how did I notice this is an issue or this is that? Someone posted that for naturalization, if you're going to file online, you have to physically be inside the United States. But I always do by paper, and I've had people be overseas and file, and it wasn't a problem. But one colleague, then I looked online, one website said this too. I'm still trying to find the source for this, that if you e-file your N-400, you have to physically be in the United States. So I'm like, I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. I wouldn't advise either way. I thought it was all good. So it's just so many different things in immigration. It's kind of frustrating, but it creates a job too. I
mean, that people often like in immigration law to tax law and all its complexities. Like even that naturalization one, I think, comes from the regulations, right? That requires you be continuously residing in your district, and you have to be linked to a district when you file, right? So there's all this weird stuff. But meanwhile, we really have had just so many changes and developments in the law over the last 4 years. As we've stepped back and started reviewing policies, it's really astounding. And it makes me realize, like, I can barely remember a time where maybe getting one new case that month that was groundbreaking was a big deal. And in the last couple of years, that was like every day, right? There was something. And it's just really hard to keep up. So we're doing a lot of keeping up and reviewing ourselves, right? To stay on our toes and make sure we can give good advice.
It's a good thing these things are digital nowadays, because it was back then where everything had to be printed. It's like as soon as you publish something, it's outdated. So that'd be so nerve-wracking to have that like that. But another thing is having to go back and constantly review manuals to make sure it's up to date. It seems like a lot of work. Like, it's just very frustrating.
It is. I mean, I think pretty much everything, we try to update in a cycle as much as we can. And, we're looking at a lot of things we want to get updated. You mentioned online, but a lot of attorneys are fickle and like their paper. So we also still make sure we have those full paper publications available too.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. I like reading on prints, because online, I think my eyes glance over. So I end up printing a lot of paper and wasting a lot of paper. One of our colleagues posted something in a Facebook group about this, like what is it called? Like iPad kind of thing that's like, looks like you're reading paper. So I went and bought it. It was expensive. I'm like, if it's something I can read that feels like paper, I got to get that, because I just can't connect with the reading on a screen too much. My eyes glaze over too much.
Yeah. And it's also the ability to take notes and highlight. There was this picture someone took of my computer one day where there was like sticky notes all over the computer because I just had to process by writing. And they're like, I think you haven't mastered the new technology yet. And I was like, that's true. But I've gotten way better under COVID times, I have to say.
It just feels so much better to handwrite it. I just can't get into it. I guess new generation doesn't have, it's all good. But, there's a new term they have I saw online yesterday I'm a millennial. I was born in 84. And they call us geriatric millennials. That's like the new term. I'm like, I guess that's it. But so they always have to come up with something.
There's always something. Yeah.
Well, cool. I would really like to have you back on the show. If any policy changes happen and any news from ILRC, definitely feel free to contact me. I'd love to have you back on. I'm going to contact you again. And ILRC was so kind to support the magazine as well. We'll be talking more about that in future episodes. But Erin, I was going to say, do you have any social media links or something to follow ILRC or yourself? But I guess definitely go to ilrc.org. Let's see, they have the links at the bottom. So they have Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Definitely follow those for any news updates. But I guess the best thing is to subscribe so you get the email updates. And you need it because Biden's changing up everything. You need to get these updates just to stay on top of it.
Yeah, and if folks prefer Facebook or other channels, they're coming out in those directions as well. So they can just make sure to look at ILRC in that space as well. And I think that generally does the trick. So
wonderful. Well, thank you, Erin, so much. Stay on the line. I'm gonna say bye to everybody, but thanks so much for coming on the show.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks everyone. I hope you are well and see you all next episode.